Hey folks, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew. This continues my series on the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. This is level 5. Last time I did the major power center, major and minor figures. There's usually 6 criteria that I use when, analyzing an existing mega dungeon or designing my own. In addition to thinking about the major powers, these include exploring the entire level, the risks and rewards of that. You have resource drain encounters, those that don't necessarily bring you treasure or, anything useful information. You have the interlevel connectivities, levels up above and below or in distances when you have a mega dungeon with many levels. And of course, dynamic versus static dungeons. Is everything just sort of sitting in place waiting for the players, or does it appear that they're interacting, things are actually living there? Then the subject that I'm going to do today, which is entrances and exits. How do the players get to this level, leave the level? And in this case, with level 5 and any mega dungeon, you're really starting to see the gates of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage start to play. Because once you get, if you think of the definition of a mega dungeon, let's say 5 or 6 or more levels, getting down and coming out, you're going to need some method than just winding your way each level to the various doors. Because unless you're running some campaign where the players just run through the dungeon endlessly, they're going to have to return to the surface to resupply, restock, just get a good night's rest or whatever, which means they're going to have to go up and come back down, and they're not going to want to necessarily have to go through all those levels again that they already explored. They want to get to those deeper levels. So you want to have a method by which they can quickly do that, and the monsters, NPCs, whatever that live there can use those as well. So the classic teleport sigils, you have elevators, you also just have a stairway that runs up multiple levels. In the case of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, they have these gates. They're very specialized. They kind of go alternate, different. Some are super deep. Some just go one level. And Hallister, the Mad Mage, has them protected with his runes that he puts on there. And these cause effects. I've detailed this in my Mad Mage setup, so you can look at that to see more about those. And I've looked at Reddit boards about Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I've seen there are groups that just run endlessly from level to level to level. They don't worry about real life considerations, resupply, leveling. The GM doesn't care. But I think if you look at the way this was designed, 23 level dungeon, these gates, the idea here is that you are going to have players going back and up to the surface. They have this yawning portal where people come out and go back down and whatnot. You're not going to have people living in the dungeon. But the thing is, the ease at which the players can use the gates in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage is constricted by their levels. And what this reflects is the conceit that the deeper you go into a dungeon, the more nasty the monsters get. Now, there's an important thing in terms of your own dungeon design. You don't have to follow this Gygaxian conception that the deeper you go, the deadlier the monsters get. In fact, I've argued in other videos that I would think that in a mega dungeon, deadly monsters might want to be right in the first couple levels so that they can easily go outside and hunt or just do whatever, but also to protect the entrance. They don't want people just wandering here. So you might have, it might be really nasty right away, or it might be, they leave the first kind of level as bait, whatever, just so they can draw things in and then attack them. Then as you go deeper and deeper, you get creatures that just like to live underground. They never want to go above ground. They live there. Some of them would be deadly, but some of them would be not so deadly. And you might have a creature very deadly that wants to live deep underground for security reasons, but wants that quick entrance and exit so that it can move on. The classic is the ancient red dragon, lives deep in a super cave complex, but it goes up through, say, a volcanic shaft or fissures or something where it's easy for it to go up and down, but very difficult for other creatures. But you could also have it take over something with gates or some gigantic elevator if you want, because here's the thing, it's the world of D&D magic. You can do whatever you want. The thing is, the Mad Mage does work under this Gygaxian conceit of the deeper you go, the deadlier it gets. So they put this level constriction on usage of the gates, although they almost always, there's a few little weird exceptions, have a conventional entrance or exit and entrance to the next level, a tunnel, stairs, a river, the river of the depths, something like that. But the thing is, aside from the first level, which has a gate from the 1st to the 10th, you got to be 11th level to use it, all the other levels have at least 2 gates exiting from them. And again, they're 2-way gates. And the 6th has, I think, 11 gates on it. The so-called lost level. And someone put together this chart. You can see how these things work. Notice this first level dungeon goes all the way down to the 10th, but you got to be 11th. So presumably players, when they get to 11th level, they can just quickly go to the first level and boom, they're down to the 10th level dungeon. So these level restrictions on these gates are usually pretty consistent with where the players should be according to the designers when a group of 4 players goes through these dungeons. There is one exception on the 3rd level. There's a gate that you can achieve a level high enough and go to the 5th level. You can just skip the 4th level. Now, I would not recommend that because one, you want to search through all these levels, explore them to find treasure items, and there might be information or half an item or whatnot. And 2, you really haven't gained the level experience to, handle that level. And of course, this whole business of, connecting a game mechanic of level to the usage of the gates is just that, another game mechanic. Because you can't use spells to teleport in the Undermountain Hallister with, some unknown powers that are best not left explained, just eliminates the usage of all teleport spells. He's forcing you, if you want to go multiple levels, to use his gates. Unless, of course, you want to snake your way through every level each time after you exit, you're going to go all the way down, 9 levels to 10. I don't think so. You're going to use that gate. But the thing is, you got to figure out how to use it. There's always an item that you have to find, a coin, or hitting it with a staff, or sometimes a wand. There are a few spell ones. And then, of course, you have to deal with runes that Hallister's placed there. They affect usually the first person, but you can choose any one, usually one person, but it can be more than that. And it has a bane or boon effect. So in theory, you could have players say they have to have some horrible experience with these, because some of them last 24 hours. They have to sit around and wait, or, again, they can be a pain. They might say, you know what, we're going to snake our way through every level. We're just going to do that. We already cleared them out. And you're going to just have to run random monsters. Or it says here, Hallister restocks the dungeon. That's how it gets monsters, right? The problem is that's a lot of real life time. And if they just force you to do it, you might be very tempted to go, fine, you're at the 10th level. I don't care. But I wouldn't do that. Because the thing is, it's designed to make it difficult. They have to pay some price. Either that price there to run through there or to use the gates. So, just, let them run all those random monsters one time, and they're probably going to go, okay, fine, you got me. Let's use the gates. Now, I think you need to modify them a little bit, as we'll see. Because here's another question. How do the players know what level they need to be in order to use a gate? They go to that first one, they discover the gate, they figure out how to use it, and they're presumably, I think they start at 5th or 6th. They're not going to be able to go, right? They have to be 11th level. Now, it says in there that these are all set up by Jazeera Kesselharp, who's one of Hallister's primo apprentice, but of course they always get destroyed. She now wanders disembodied through the halls. She warns the players if they try to use stairs, if they're going to something too deep, her voice comes out and says, you're not powerful enough to do that. But in terms of the gates, it just says if you open the gate, you figure out, but you're not high enough level, you just get pushed back. And think about the ramifications of that. Do the players have to go to each gate that they discover, whether they're coming down into the dungeon or coming back up, basically after they've leveled up, if they determine that it's a level up situation. So every time they go through the first level, they go to that gate each time until they get to 11th level, and then suddenly they can go through. And they're going to do this for all the various gates they discover, which means you're basically winding your way again on these levels that you're trying to avoid with the gates. And that's real life time, my friend, which is more valuable than gold. So you may consider you could have Jazeera or something, or just do it as the GM and say, you got to be X level to use this gate. Because it's a game mechanic, just like you need this to hit the creature. This is its armor class, so you need this to get through the gate. Now here's another consideration when you have a level restriction on a gate. What happens if players die and you bring them back and they're not at the same level as the rest of the group? You've got some rule in your party, whatever that might be. I doubt whether it would be 1st level if you've got 7th or 10th level characters. But the problem is, if you always bring people back at the same level as the party, there can be abuses. There can be some reckless behavior. The person that says, I'm sick of playing this 10th level barbarian. What I really like is that 10th level warlock. So I'll just do everything I can to get this character killed, and then I'll pop back in and I'll be a 10th level warlock. But if you say, oh, no, you always come back, 2 levels lower, or however you want to do it, well, suddenly the group can't get through because they're going to be exploring new levels. And so they have to either, whatever that lowest level character is, they have to go through that gate and then retrace their steps. It's a little bit annoying. Or, and when does that player appear? Do you have them just appear if the person dies, or do they have to go back up to get them? Well, right away there. they're limited. And the thing about gates is, where do they send you? You really want to think about this if you're creating them from your own dungeon. If you look, the first gate at level 1, like you have to be 11th, that sends you to 10, just goes to this room, and it's pretty much empty. There's 4 Dwarven adventures, the corpses of them there, and some magic items. They couldn't get back through the gate because you need a wand to open it. And they're giving out some wands all through the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, so presumably your party, if they found that, will have it. So you think, well, that's pretty fair. I just came into a room and I'm ready to check things out or whatever. Well, guess what? The very first gate the players can use, which is on level 2 and sends them to 4, puts them in a room with 2 Drow warriors and a Drow elite warrior. You just come through, there they are. And the thing about it is, the first thing they're going to do, maybe you try to parlay with them or whatever, but they're going to call out because they have this whole, contingent of Drow that are going to run in. So it feels a little bit like a screw job. And the very next gate that you can use sends you from the 3rd level to the 5th, what I'm talking about. And where it sends you is the Archdruid Willow's tower, one of the rooms in her tower. Now, this seems a little problematic to me, this entrance to the 5th level. Willow has this stone tower that's carved to make it look like a tree. Hallister did it for her. It's got 3 different levels. And you're just put into this room. It's a dusty room all closed off, but you're in her tower. You're going to confront her. She's 18th level. Now, you can say, well, we're going to negotiate, or we're not going to mess with her or whatever. You're going to just start exploring. But I'm just like, why would she want to have a gate in her tower? The designers just want these adventurers to just be appearing here all the time. And, it's funny, too, because they describe her in the book as distant but kindly. Whereas I went into her background and was going, I sort of said, I think she's crazy. Because, oh, by the way, she has a room in this tower in which all the walls and ceiling are covered by the bones of all the adventurers she's killed. Which kind of makes sense since they're teleporting into her tower all the time. But what if a group of, 10, 12th level characters decide, let's teleport into Willow's tower and kill her? Now, maybe she is an 18th level. She's got her Displacer Beast, her Awakened Tree, her spells. But she can also call upon Hallister. She's got this crystal ball. But as we'll see, I'll talk about this later, it's kind of a convoluted process to do this. But I'm just like, after this happens a few times, to say to her, because supposedly Hallister wants her to, be comfortable here, take the freaking gate out of my tower. And here's the thing. The next gate the players can use, which goes from 4th to 5th, then they use it at 8th level. The one before I described is at a 7th level party. This takes you to this kind of fortress area here, and it has a dead halfling in it, and he's got 4 gold pieces. So at the 7th level, you can take a gate that's total screw job. At 8th level, you can take a gate with free treasure. Now, I do have a theory on this as to why they did the Drow one and they do Willow, which I'll talk about in the next video. It's not necessarily a theory that I agree with. I'm just trying to grasp at straws why they do that, but you'll see that in the next video. So obviously, if the players are running along, they can take the river of depths, and come down the river and go into the level. But the point is, sooner or later, as you go deeper and deeper and have to leave for any reason, they're going to want to start using these gates. So when you think about the mechanics of using those, you can see some of the considerations and complications you have when you have all these staggered gates in this dungeon complex. Because you have 2 gates that go to the 5th level from the higher levels. You have the 2nd and the 3rd. And then there's another gate on the 5th level that takes you down to the 6th. So let's say the players, they finished up level 4, but they're going to use a gate to go to level 5. So they're going to go back up top, rest up, buy supplies, get a level, whatever it is they're going to do. They're going to take this gate on level 4, and then they're going to go to level 2, and they're going to make their way up to level 1. Again, you have to do that. You got to go up the stairs. You got to go up to level 1, up to the yawning portal. Then they're going to come back down to level 2, but there's another gate that will take them directly to level 5. So the runes work on both sides of this, right? Coming and going. So that's 4 gates. That's 4 sets of runes that they have to combat when they do this. And, this can be a pain. This is what I'm talking about, because you can have some 24-hour, bad effects. You can get some good effects, but a lot of them are like you get 1 roll and then it's gone, versus the Bane effect, which lasts, the whole time, or you take 10d6 damage or something that you're using up cure spells and somebody rest for the day, maybe, but random monsters. And do you want to take a long rest right away? It just becomes like kind of a pain. And unless you want to make up your own rune cards. There's 18 of them, 9 Bane and 9 Boon. So as you go on these levels, you're going to have some repeat themselves. Some of the bad ones. All right, so having covered those gates, I'm going to talk about a few things that I might do. First of all, if I'm going to have a gate system, how I would design it for my own dungeons, and also how you can retool these gates just a little bit in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So one method for gates in general to sort of consolidate them is to treat them like an elevator. The gate can go to multiple levels on a dungeon. You can divide that if you want. You know, this gate goes from level 1 through 5, then 6 through 10, something like that. And then you can have keys that you can use, you know, whether it's a literal key or some magic thing or whatever, so that you can get on the gate and that takes you to level 2, or that this one takes you to level 3, level 4, level 5. But what you're doing is you're having one entrance. Now, of course, things are going to gather there. I know the sort of dynamic dungeon. Hey, here's the gate. There's tons of people are appearing here. So you can have issues with that. But what you're trying to do is, you know, not waste game time having to constantly go through, unless you just want to say, okay, you're at the gate. Okay, you went through here, next gate, you know, and you're not running any random monsters, which you could also do. But of course, it says in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage that Alistair restocks the dungeon. And the other thing is, instead of some hard level game mechanic restriction, you can just put the keys on a level that should be appropriate for, you know, the players of that level. And here's the thing, you don't necessarily, so if you start, someone dies and the player starts one level lower than the lowest person, or 2 levels, or whatever your mechanic is, well, sure, they can still use the key. They can still go there. Now, that new player is going to be told, you know, we are going down to a deadly dungeon. That's our group. And the new player joins in and says, I'll take my chances. Because, you know, with other higher level characters, there's a better chance they're going to survive. And, you know, in terms of retooling, if players are constantly using these gates, I might, with the runes, say kind of the rule of the first time is the worst time kind of thing, where the first time you go through a gate, it's just 1 or 2 players has the rune effect. Then every time you go back through that gate, or, you know, use it again, it's less, maybe a 25% chance of a rune, maybe 50 the second time and 25 the third. I don't know. You can also just eliminate, if you're going up, there is no rune. Again, you may just say, hey, I love these rune effects. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. No problem. But for me, penalties like this every time, you know, it's like a tax on the players, or potentially a boon. I get it. But, you know, why have it happen all the time? And you could stagger it for levels. The farther down you go, if you have one that goes from, say, the 1 to 10, the runes are really nasty if you want, because the players presumably are higher level. You could have certain levels where they find out, hey, if you go here, this rune is for sure a Bane or something, or, you know, maybe you want to keep it random. But the point is that you might be more selective in the runes you use kind of, you know, less deadly ones at the high, you know, the first, second, or third, something like that. The other thing about these gates, if you're going to send players into a room through a teleport gate that's just filled with nasties, you may give them the option to be able to look through the gate before they step, look before they leap, as it were, and see what's in there. And they see, you know, a lich sitting there at his desk, you know, or they decide, do you want to go through that gate? Now, here's the thing. The gate opens, they're looking through, that lich may be able to look through them, at them too. And maybe they can come back through. You know, you make that decision. But the point is, you don't just have the players walk into this gate and there's a lich. Oh, I've captured you. Now what's next? You know, just a little bit of advanced information there. Of course, with Willow's Gate, when they describe the room as super dusty, you know, it looks like no one's been there, even though this is a gate that adventurers use. I don't know. But the point is, it's got cobwebs and stuff. They're going to look at that and go, oh, it's abandoned, and go into her thing, and then start opening doors, and there we are in Willow's Tower. So there you have a review of the entrances and exits in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, with a general discussion of gates, teleports, sigils, you know, elevators, anything you have that can make movement for players if you've got a mega dungeon very quick, and just thinking about the ramifications for that as a party explores. So next time I will continue with my criterion on level 5 of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. Always looking for more. Give me some comments. I'd love to hear people that are running in the Mad Mage, what they think. I get a lot of stuff from people that say, hey, your videos are really helpful to me. And of course, I make these for dungeon design primarily, but hey, if it helps you run the Mad Mage, go for it. And whatever you run, module, homebrewed, just keep running it, my friends, and tell someone else about it.